Hello, class, and welcome to another exciting facilitation for this semester. I am Dr. Annie George, Department of Public Health, Faculty of Health Sciences, and will be your guide. Hope we all enjoy it. Thank you.
Welcome to another interesting edition of our discussion on child health, PHS 311. In the last discussion we had on topic 2, we looked at assessment of newborn and the common problems they face after birth. We looked at the key assessment indicator of newborns at birth called the ABGA score, which was developed by a physician called Virginia Abgar. We saw the parameters, the 5 parameters that are used in assessing ABGA, and the reasons why ABGA should be assessed at first minute of birth and 5 minutes of birth. We also looked at the common problems facing newborns and indications for such problems, reasons why such problems occur. So today we'll be looking at topic 3, which is essentially nutrition in children that are 0 to 5 years. At the end of this lesson, we should know what the importance of nutrition is in health of a child, understand the nutritional services that are available in infants and children, and also know the preventive measures to take against common diseases of children. So let's start with the basics. Why do we eat food? Food is needed by our bodies for energy and growth, repair, and to live long. That's what we eat food for. It has to be in adequate amount and quality. Not just adequate amount, but good quality. It has to consist of macronutrients like carbohydrates, protein, and fat, and also the micronutrients, vitamins and minerals like calcium, potassium, magnesium, and the rest. So this brings us to what is a balanced diet? What is a balanced diet? A balanced diet is one that contains the different types of food. You have different types of food, whether it is rice you want to eat, whether it is beans you want to eat, whether it's vegetables you want to eat. Those are different types of food. And those different types of food must contain the amount of macronutrients and micronutrients in them, and they must be adequately met in those different kinds of food for such food to be called a balanced diet. So there must be an adequate amount of macronutrients and micronutrients in any kind of food that you want to eat for such food to be called a balanced diet. I also want to state here that children who are well nourished are likely to recover from serious illness compared to those who are not well nourished. So that should also tell you the importance of nutrition in children and ill health. So nutrition and ill health, they are inextricably linked, or nutrition and health, they are inextricably linked. Good nutrition, good health; bad nutrition, bad health. So what we call the optimal nutrition is nutrition that guarantees normal physical, mental, developmental, and high quality of life in children. And optimal nutrition should be a balanced diet, a nutrition that is balanced. it makes them have physical and mental development in a normal way, and they live their high quality of life. But when there is undernutrition, nutrition that it is below expectation, there's usually a decrease in the physical and mental activities of children. There is decreased immunity, and there is also a high rate of susceptibility to infections. Now, what of when you overeat? Overnutrition. Not just that you overeat, but there's excess nutrients in the food you eat. Such condition brings about what we call obesity conditions, including diabetes mellitus. They are also prone to having cardiovascular diseases and cancers and all that when people have excess nutrients in their diet. So, nutrition in infants and children. Nutrition in the first 2 years of life is very, very important, very, very vital, and it's linked to the future health of such a child. When a child is well nourished before the age of 2 years, such a child will have good developmental milestone. Such a child will have growth and development ensured in the future. Now, exclusive breastfeeding is one area that is very, very key. It has benefits to the child and to the mother as well at such early stage. So it is encouraged that every child should be exclusively breastfed, except where otherwise indicated. Now, complementary feeding comes on after 6 months of exclusive breastfeeding, where you now have to introduce other feeds in addition to the breast milk, because the energy needs of the child won't be met after 6 months as the child is growing. So you need to complement by introducing other feeds into the diet of the child while also breastfeeding. Now, there's also supplementary. When you supplement feeding, that means you exchange the breast milk for another thing. In cases of HIV/AIDS, it's contraindicated to breastfeed. However, in recent times, mothers and babies are given antiretroviral medications, and they are asked to breastfeed. But for cases where there are no antiretroviral medications, mothers are asked to supplement their breastfeed with infant formula. Nutrition services after 6 months to about 5 years should include growth monitoring and promotion. At each visit a child makes to a health center or a facility for immunization and other checks. There is a growth monitoring chart where a child's growth is checked through the child's weight, height, and other parameters that are used in monitoring such growth. At every 6 months, a child should have vitamin A supplementation between 6 months to 5 years. After 2 years of such a child growth, the child should be dewormed every 6 months. There should also be iron and folic acid supplementation, especially for children who are of low birth weight. Mothers are also, giving health education on nutrition and how to go about it. They should also notice if there is any behavioral change in their children as they grow and give a feedback. Now, a child that is ill and not having adequate diet is a double dilemma for such child and the parents and the society and the population as well. Such a child is faced with an imminent malnutrition, So emphasis should be placed on the common diseases of children and how to prevent it. Such common diseases like malaria, diarrhea, intestinal worms, and pneumonia expose children to illness and could make them deplete the nutrients they have in their body, especially when they're not feeding well, and that could even pose more danger for such a child. So, such diseases like malaria, pneumonia, diarrhea diseases could, make a child have high temperature, could also make a child convulse. Some of them could cause anemia in such a child. The hemoglobin level goes low. Such a child could have poor feeding ability and poor absorption of nutrients in the gut. Such a child could be weak and fail to thrive and grow properly, in its developmental milestone, and that could ultimately lead to malnutrition in such a child. So, what is actually that hypothemia, rise in temperature of a child as a result of such infections like malaria and pneumonia and other diarrhea diseases? So, hypothermia is a temperature that is more than 37.8 degrees centigrade. That's when we say a child is running temperature, a temperature that is 37.8, some will say above 37.5, some 37.6. And that is when we say a child is having fever. There could be associated dehydration because as the child is running temperature, the child is losing fluid from this body. Such a child could have the red blood cells being lysed, leading to anemia, and ultimately such a child can convulse because of the fever. Such convulsion, especially when it is febrile convulsion, starts early in a child's life and usually fizzles out at 6 years of age. So it is important that health education and preventive measures against these conditions are emphasized to the mother. Malaria, for a child who constantly is always having malaria, chemoprophylaxis should be encouraged. Preventive medications for malaria should be given to such a child. Such a child should be, covered with insecticide-treated nets to avoid mosquitoes. They should also make sure that their environment is clean. For diarrhea diseases, the mothers should be counseled and taught about food, water, and body hygiene so that their children don't come down with diarrhea diseases. Pneumonia, they should also be taught about the general hygiene. And then when babies run temperature, they should be told about tepid sponging, the use of warm water or what we call lukewarm water in sponging the baby and not cold water like most people do. The physiology of using warm water is that warm water, when they use it, it causes vasodilatation of the blood vessels on the skin and makes the trapped heat to escape, thereby causing cooling. If you use cold water causes vasoconstriction, so that would further trap heat in the body of the child and make the child run more temperature and even convulse more. So warm water is what is used for tepid sponging. Early diagnosis and treatment of pneumonia is also important. When you notice your child is coughing, running temperature, it is good you see a health professional to make early diagnosis of what it is and treat appropriately. In summary, we've learned the importance of nutrition in the health of a child. We now know nutritional services that are available for infants and children and understood the preventive measures to take against common diseases of children. In our next lecture, we will look at vaccine preventable diseases. Thank you for listening.